March 7th is the day, Hogs fans. The football team gets back on the field to try to make themselves better for 2024. Don't want to see another 4-win campaign, do we? Got Ty Hudson here. Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. We're going to break down the Hogs on the offensive side of the ball. Ty, how you doing today?
Mark, I'm doing fantastic, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. And in thinking about the situation, and of course, we've probably had more conversations about KJ Jefferson than any player since you and I have known each other, and for good reason. He's been the guy for a long, long time and connected to a football program as a quarterback for longer than anybody going into this season, anybody in the country, but he's gone. And this would be the first time that Sam Pittman has had to make that all-important quarterback decision. He's got a quarterback battle on his hands, doesn't he? He's got Talon Green coming in from Boise State, Jacoby Criswell in the mix as well.
Yeah, it's odd because you're right. I was having this discussion with somebody not long ago about, man, this is the first time since Felipe Franks. That was his first quarterback who we had to work with in that bizarre 2020 season when he only played 10 games and they're all conference, and they found a way to win 3. Should have been 4. I'm not going to dive into the Auburn fiasco, but great year one with a new coach, new offense, new defense, a whole new thing, and you did it with a transfer quarterback in Felipe Franks, who was coming off a major injury, and without him, I'm not so sure that Arkansas would have been able to win a single game that year or a single conference game, as that's all they played in 2020. So here we are again with Talon Green, who's a transfer, but I don't know if it's going to be as simple as Talon Green just walks in and he has the job. I think it's going to be a little bit of a battle between him and a couple of others.
So based on what you've seen, based on the people that you trust, who do you give the nod to and why? And what are the differences between these quarterbacks?
Oh, well, yeah. So last year, Jacoby Criswell, 6'1", 225, 230-pound quarterback, turned heads early on in spring camp last year. I was there. It was my first spring camp to attend, and he turned heads as camp went on, as did everybody. Nobody looked good in the beginning, and apparently nobody ever does. But then you had KJ, who everyone expected to be the guy. I don't know that he ever, there's only so much you can take, right, from even just practices is what happens on the field, that you come away, with the most. But it never felt to me like anybody was going to push KJ. And with this year, it obviously without KJ here, and you've got Jacoby Criswell who's back. He's going to be a redshirt. He's a 5th-year senior, and then we already mentioned Talon Green, the transfer out of Boise State. And you've also got redshirt freshman Malachi Singleton. You got the true freshman, who I'm told is already on campus, KJ Jackson, who apparently hit a growth spurt. I've read he's taller than what his recruiting profile suggests. I think it's going to be an open battle from start to finish. I don't know who I would probably say it feels like Jacoby will probably get the nod with the ones. He's not a KJ type of a quarterback, and yet I felt like he's someone who could have been pretty effective in a KJ fitted offense in the veer and shoot, if that makes any sense. He can actually take off, tuck the ball, and run. He wasn't the same type of runner. KJ was more of a bulldozer. I mean, you and I used to joke about that. He was like a linebacker, with the football in his hands. Just ran people over, wasn't afraid of contact. And then he could run by folks too. But Jacoby was more of a finesse type runner who did show off a little bit of physicality. I think arm talent probably better with Jacoby Criswell compared to KJ, or at least I think his ceiling might be up there with KJ. And I don't know that KJ's arm talent is super high, so that's not like a huge compliment. KJ's strengths were that he could just put this team on his shoulders and make plays. That's just what he did up until 2023. And then Talon Green is a different quarterback altogether. Mark, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about Matt Jones at Arkansas or not, he's probably my all-time favorite Razorback, period. I've never seen anybody like that. 6'6" in the NFL Combine, 242 pounds. He ran a 4.37 40. You couldn't see it on television. Watching YouTube videos doesn't do it justice. And I can remember the first time I got to see him play. I think it was the tail end of his freshman year. And it didn't matter if you had a good angle on Matt or not. He'd just run right by these guys. It was unreal. But because he was so long, again, 6'6", it didn't seem like he was running that fast. Talon Green gives off similar vibes. Again, 6'6". He's not 242 like Matt was his senior year, but he's 221 pounds as a redshirt junior. And he's pretty fast. You can watch it. Again, I don't know that YouTube videos do those guys much justice, but if you want to see him, run the ball, you could certainly find those videos online. He's an explosive player. And so you have some fascinating options. And then Malachi Singleton, who's kind of similar to Jacoby Criswell in some ways. Obviously, they're like the exact same size, 6'1", 220 or 230 pounds. We're going to learn a lot about these guys. I think, of course, as spring camp unfolds, it's going to be interesting to see who gets the most nods working with the ones. But right now, I would assume it's going to be Criswell simply because he's been with Pittman. He knows Sam's requirements or his just the day-to-day operations, right? He's been there now for a little bit. But at the end of the day, though, Talon Green is Bobby Petrino's guy. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out by the end of spring camp.
I've seen both of these guys play, Criswell and Green. Now, it's not like I watched Talon Green at Boise State with the intent of I'm scouting Talon Green. It was I'm
Right.
surfing by and I'm going to catch Boise State for a quarter. So it wasn't with any kind of intent to scout him. 11 touchdowns, 9 picks. He's run for 19 touchdowns in his career. And he's thrown the ball 483 times. And to compare these two and their experience level coming in, there's nothing like being out there as the starting quarterback on Saturdays when the adrenaline rush is there and when it's all on the line. And he played for good Boise State teams. They went and won the Mountain West Conference Championship last year. Now, Criswell has only thrown 58 passes in college football, but he's been around a lot of good players and competed in practice for a long time. Talking for 4 years between North Carolina and Arkansas. So you got to think if there's going to be a time for him, now is the time.
Yeah, right. Technically a fifth-year senior. Too many times when I have this conversation with people, Hog fans, it's always, well, yeah, but we got to see Jacoby play at the end of the year against Missouri. That's all I need to know. So I'm just going to write him off. And it's like, yeah, but you do realize that was probably one of the worst performances up front on the line of scrimmage from a blocking perspective that we have seen in a while. I mean, it was pathetic. I mean,
yeah, that ruined my Friday of Black Friday football because I was locked into I'm going to sit here and relax and eat some leftovers and watch Mizzou and Arkansas and hope that Arkansas can give them a game. I know Mizzou's having this great year, but it still should be a good game. The talent difference isn't that. Yeah, it was just a deplorable game.
It was awful. It's the worst performance I think they've put together under Pittman since he's been here. It's got to be up there. And I know Mizzou was really good this year. I'll give them all the credit in the world. They were good. I have no hate.
We're doing a TV ratings breakdown series, and Arkansas fans can feel good that by far that was the most watched Arkansas game last year.
Oh boy, yeah, that'll make them feel a little bit better, Mark. I guess you got a glass half full, right? Yeah, it was bad, and I kept telling people who wanted KJ benched all year. It became a gag or a joke I would do on my show. Put in Criswell because that's all fans wanted. Put in Criswell. And I kept telling them, look, you're not going to get anything much different. I wish him the best. Maybe he'll have an advantage because Mizzou didn't know, or if he had the opportunity to play, they wouldn't really know, like, these are two different quarterbacks. How you prep for KJ is not how you prep for Criswell. That's always something you have to consider. But no, we got in fact, it was the worst performance by a quarterback, I think, all year. I'm sure KJ had a couple other doozies, but nobody was going to have success last year behind that line of scrimmage or behind that offensive line. Nobody. And Criswell proved my point pretty well. And that's all I heard in my Discord. I mean, I had my own mods in Discord telling me, no, Ty, or Criswell, no, he's going to be the better option here. You know, and I just kept saying, well, let's watch. I guess you're going to get your opportunity. And what happened? It was a mess. And yeah, I was hoping for a better game than what we got, and it was just not. You talk about ending the season on just such a bad note. It all begins this week. You know, your chemistry, you know, your remolding, reshaping of your program starts this week for Arkansas. This is when spring camp starts. And I know we're touching on the quarterbacks, but man, there's so many places on that offense. They've got to get figured out. And it starts this week, and we'll see. I guess we won't really see until fall, but you know, they've got to get off to a good start.
Yeah, so let's get to the running backs. Of course, Rocket Sanders is in one way a huge loss in that he's a big talent and had that ridiculous year 2 years ago. But based on not seeing much of the field last year, 3.5 yards per carry and 200 yards, not a big loss in terms of what he was able to give Arkansas last year. And AJ Green is off to Kansas State. So who's going to be jumping in there in the backfield?
Well, so you've got a couple of options. I do really like Jaquindon Jackson, the running back they picked up out of Utah. I like him a lot. His numbers last year don't blow you away. If you look at that, he's at 161 carries for almost 800 yards, about 5 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. He caught the ball 9 times for 53 yards. But the year before that, 2022, he had a great year. 78 carries, 531 yards, 9 touchdowns, a 66-yard run from the line of scrimmage, and he averaged close to 7 yards per carry. When he was recruited, he was actually recruited out of high school as a quarterback. And 247 compared him as a 4-star. They have his 40 here logged down at 4.61. That was at 6'2", 219 pounds. His comparison under 247 is Dak Prescott. And so he transfers to Utah. They turn him into a running back, and again, 2022, he had in terms of yards per carry and even touchdowns, he had a really strong year. So, you know, he did have 800 yards last year as a running back, but his yards per carry took a little bit of a dip, and his touchdowns took a dip. He had about 5 yards a carry in 2023 and 4 touchdowns. But he's a very fascinating piece that's been added to the depth chart. You've got Augustov, who ended the year on a decent note, despite the troubles at quarterback, despite the horrific offensive line, the blocking, pass and run blocking. Really, Arkansas is one-dimensional as you get. And Augustov found a way. I mean, he ended the season pretty strong. And I think some people even assume it's going to come down between him and maybe Jackson and DeBinion as leaders out of that room, out of the running back room. And then you do have DeBinion, who's going to be a junior. And by the way, Augustov did burn his red shirt last year, so he will be a sophomore at 6'2", 208 pounds. DeBinion's the other guy who kind of disappeared this last season. And then they've got Dominic Johnson, who it feels like that guy's been here since, I don't know, the Houston Nutt era. 6'1", 250-pound running back. He's, I think technically he is just a fifth-year senior, but it feels like he's been here longer. But they are. There's some options back there, and I'm curious to see how that unfolds as well. And I think with Petrino and his he had some good backs when he was here. I mean, he had some running backs. You know, people forget his first year here. They had running back out of Florida, Smith, who ran for 1,000 yards his first year. He had Niall Davis a little while later. I mean, he had some options at running back that excelled in his offense. So it'll be, again, it's going to be fun to watch, see how this all kind of unravels.
So let's move on to the wide receivers. Isaac Tesla was the big pickup last offseason. He caught 34 balls. Who's coming back, and who do you expect to make a splash?
They're all back. I mean, they the fear was, and I get it, that Centennia was going to be the guy, the sophomore who's out of Fayetteville. There was some fear there that he was going to transfer out, and I think that came from the fact that the guy committed to like 3 different schools, and you're always a little bit concerned about, especially a kid who's from Fayetteville who committed first to, I think it was A&M, or maybe it was Oregon and then A&M and then finally Arkansas. But he's still here. Tesla is back. Andrew Armstrong is back. Tyrone Broden, the 6'6" player transfer they got from a year ago. Dozier. They've got some they've got this kid out of A&M, Jordan Anthony, who's apparently just a speedster, just a burner. So we'll get it. I'm pretty sure we'll get it. I think we'll get a chance to see him. I could be wrong. Track season is all year long, so maybe we won't see him actually, now that I think about that. But yeah, you'll still get to see those guys, the guys that were here a year ago: Andrew Armstrong, Tesla, Centennia, and Broden. So yeah, you're getting experience back there. I still wonder about the overall ceiling for that for the receiver, for that group of receivers. I don't know that it's real high, and that's what kind of, bringing in Bobby Petrino, a guy who's known for churning out quarterbacks and wideouts and running that offense of his. I don't know. Maybe he'll make them better. Maybe the work that he does with his quarterbacks will pay off and the whole offense will blossom, and that includes the wide receivers. But Armstrong is obviously the guy that most people are excited about, rightfully so. He did have a pretty decent year. But again, the overall talent level to me, outside of maybe Centennia, feels, and maybe I'm going to be eating my words, this time next year or a little sooner, but it just feels to me like the lowest it's been in a while, if I'm being honest. That doesn't mean I think they're going to be bad. I just, talent level wise, I don't know that it's real high.
Yeah. In a league where the standard is extremely high.
Yeah.
So it can be a decent wide receiver core, but still be one of the worst in the SEC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Armstrong, 56 catches, 13.5 per, 5 touchdowns. And yes, folks, before anybody flags me in the comments on my pronunciation of, I think I said Tesla. I know it's Tesla.
Yeah.
It's not like the car, but I got familiar with him because we do our Iowa channel, and they thought that they were going to get him in the offseason. So I knew about Tesla well before he signed with Arkansas.
He was a sought after commodity. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think it was Colorado. Dion rolled out a Tesla on his visit. Someone Google, I seem to remember that happening. I think I even covered it. Maybe, you jump from story to story so often you forget what you cover, but he was certainly somebody that a lot of people wanted. I put a video out on Twitter, just kind of breaking down his numbers, or just what I had on him at the time. And I think Arkansas may have just offered him at that time, and that's why I put that tweet out. But he was someone who, I mean, Mark, last time we saw eyes on him in camp, he was making some outstanding grabs in practice. I mean, it was like they were highlight reel after highlight reel, and it just never flourished. It never made its way onto the actual field when it mattered, when the game was on. And I hope that changes this year for him. I mean, he's rumored, I think his 40 time, I want to say it's rumored in the like low 4.5s, and for someone that size with that kind of build, that's pretty impressive. He's got a catch radius, Mark. It's got to be, I don't know, it's like a power forward. I mean, he's just got these, I don't know what it is. He's just got a really wide catch radius, good hands. I'm not going to say, Treylon Burks-esque, but we certainly saw some promise there. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe I ought to rethink my talent level evaluation, as far as the ceiling. It still just seems lower to me than it should be, especially with a guy like Bobby Petrino, who I know just took the job, but I kind of thought they'd bring some more folks over from A&M or from the state of Texas, and didn't really happen that way outside of Jordan Anthony. But I still feel like that room is a little bit lower than it should be. And like you pointed out correctly, I might add, that it doesn't matter how good you think you are. What matters is how good you actually are in this league, in the SEC. Even if I think it's taken a step back over the last couple of years, thanks to the transfer portal, it's still extremely competitive. And that's an area, especially with the kind of offense I think Petrino wants to put in here. You've got to have some playmakers out there.
Got Ty Hudson here, of course, from Tusk Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. You see the X handle right there for Ty. So jump on board and check out. This is the time to do it, folks, because Ty's going to take you right through spring camp. He's going to be there just about every day checking out the Hogs. And Luke Hasz, is he still the tight end? Who's going to play tight end for this team?
Oh my gosh. If they were judged as a team by what they have in the tight end room, it's kind of insane. It's probably, simply because the last 2 years they've been so underwhelming. They won 6 and 22, and obviously what they did in 23 couldn't even make a bowl game. Like everything else is kind of taking a back seat. It's just, oh, well, you're bad. Nothing about you is any good at all. The tight end room is probably going to be the best kept secret. Even though Luke Hasz, like most people know who he is, I think PFF graded him out really high. 6'3", 242 pounds, sophomore. He burned his red shirt last year, but he did get hurt. If you look at his numbers, I don't remember how many games he played in exactly, but he missed a lot of time. I think I believe his numbers could have doubled. I really think he could have had double the numbers, which would have put him close to 40 grabs. Maybe we're talking 5-6 touchdowns. I don't know. We also have to remember how things unraveled throughout the year, and that was outside of his control. But yeah, he is. I remember watching him in camp last year, and every time he was throwing the ball, no matter who was throwing it to him, Mark, nobody was around him. And the secondary ended up being pretty decent this year. It's not like it was when Odom was here. They finally took a step in the right direction in the secondary, finally. And so it's not like he's doing this against a horrific defense. Yeah, their numbers could have been better, but they took a significant step forward. And yet you've got Luke Hasz, who's always wide open in practice when he's getting thrown the ball. Watching him in fastball, which we're unfortunately not allowed to record, but we can watch it with our eyes, and writers can jot down what they see. Meanwhile, I'm typing on my phone as fast as I can because I can't film it. But every time he caught the ball, it didn't seem like anybody was near him, and he was hard to just get hands on. He's a great athlete out of Bixby, Oklahoma. Ty Washington, another guy who, Mark, I think could be a potential second or third team All SEC caliber tight end. Maybe better, just stacked in the tight end room. Just with those guys, you still got Varkey's Gums, transfer out of North Texas a year ago. He never really looked comfortable last year, and if I was around anybody the most in camp, whether it was camp or practice, it was quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends. And the tight ends, they're all the way down on the south part of the end zone, but they're almost right next. If you walk down to the end of the football field, you're right next to the tight ends. I can hear them talk. I mean, it's kind of fun, actually. And he never really looked comfortable to me. And the same with Shamar Easter. That's what I'm really kind of focusing on as well, along with, Petrino back, the quarterback situation, the new faces here and there on the offensive line, which I know we're going to touch on here in a second. But I'm really fascinated to see with how that works out behind Luke Hasz in Washington. Has Easter put on some good weight? That was a criticism of Shamar Easter's. He looked like a tall receiver out at tight end. And then Gums, who just never really looked comfortable. How does he look, assuming we get to see all these guys, which I think we will? I don't think anybody's supposed to miss spring. Again, I'll have to update folks, just based on what I see and what I hear. But yeah, a tight end, it is loaded. It's loaded. It's crazy. And hopefully they can be utilized in ways that they weren't last year. And of course, again, Luke has missed quite a bit of time, but I'd like to see just kind of how they respond in this new offense, another offense for them to learn. So, but yeah, it's stacked, Mark. That is probably their deepest position, maybe no matter where on either side of the ball. It's probably that tight end room.
All right, Ty. You started out this conversation by letting us know and reminding us how bad the offensive line was last year, and you've sprinkled it throughout the conversation. So none of this is going to work. None of the fast guys get to do anything, much of anything, if the offensive line doesn't work. The good thing about teams with bad offensive lines in this day and age, because offensive line is such a developmental position that in the past it was difficult to fix it in 1 year, because even if you had a great recruiting class, most likely those guys wouldn't have a huge impact, most likely. But with the transfer portal, there's at least the opportunity to fix things quickly. Where do we stand on the offensive line? Is there hope that it can be competent?
Well, so last year like we talked about, it was horrific. And the two guys that were supposed to be standouts last year were not standouts. Well, actually, I guess we could talk, Bo Limmer and Brady Latham, right? Were the two guys that we expected more out of. And I don't know if they did bad, but both those guys, they're expected to get, or not, maybe not get drafted. I think they both got NFL Combine invites, but those guys are gone. You return Chambly, who got some time last year, Tykees Crawford, who got time last year, Kudos, I don't know why I said Kutos, like he's a character off Star Trek, and then Joshua Braun. Okay, they did hit the portal pretty hard, and they've done that for the last couple of years. It really started probably with Chambly when they pulled him in out of Charlotte a couple of years ago. He was originally committed as a 4-star tackle out of high school, committed to Arkansas. I think he ran into some, I don't remember, grade issues. He had to go to Charlotte for a year, and then he came back to Arkansas. And since then, we were all big on him. We thought, oh, well, here's a future NFL draft pick. He was, what I saw was that guy getting, giving up sacks and hurries left and right. Now, PFF, I think, if I remember right, PFF likes him more than I do. But there's folks that I've talked to in the media, I won't name them, but they believe Crawford's going to be a starter. And Mark, if he's a starter, I'm really concerned. I don't know that they made the necessary upgrades. So then they bring in a guy like Fernando Carmona, or I think it's Carmona Jr. out of San Jose State. Keyshawn Blackstock, Addison Nichols, who's out of Tennessee, who's a former 4-star. Some of these guys have great PFF grades, but that's one thing when you're being graded at San Jose State versus coming to the SEC. Those grades don't always translate. So, and we've seen that across the landscape, in college football. You get these guys from Group of Fives or whatever, and and Arkansas just experienced that just this last year with some of the receivers we were just talking about. They graded out high, but they came from no-name schools. What happened last year? How much of it was their fault? How much of it was the offensive line's fault for not giving their quarterback more time to throw the ball? So, yeah, they've got a Marion Harris, another guy we've kind of been waiting on to step up, Paris Patterson, Josh Street, another, I think he's expected to be in the 3 deep this year. I don't know who the starters are going to be, Mark. It's going to be musical chairs, I think, up front. It's probably going to be as competitive at the offensive line spot as it is at quarterback throughout spring and summer workouts and then fall camp. I think it's going to be an ongoing thing. I don't know. Right now, I would probably argue at left tackle. I think Carmona has a shot there instantly, the transfer out of San Jose State. Addison Nichols, between him and Amari Wiggins, I was trying to combine names there. Amari Wiggins, who's been here for, I think they brought him in last year out of JUCO. I would probably say it's going to be between those two there. And then, I don't know, Harris and somebody at that other guard spot. So I don't know. Kudos. Who knows? Maybe he'll stay at right tackle. Maybe he gets moved to the interior. But there's so many questions here, and I just don't have any answers for anybody other than, and this is no disrespect to Tykees Crawford. I don't mean any disrespect, but I just haven't been blown away by his performance since he's been at Arkansas. He's really struggled. And if he ends up being a starter, and maybe he's just really turned the corner, and I've got it all wrong. After all, like you said, this is a very heavily developmental position, and you're right. Maybe he peaks this year. I don't know, but the last couple of years, or last year, he really struggled, I thought. But Again, he's one of those guys who I thought was going to be a multi-year starter, and this year we'd be talking about him in the NFL draft, and that's obviously not the case. But overall, I don't know yet if they've made a significant upgrade here or not. Only time will tell. Some of these guys seem to have pretty high ceilings. Just how high, I'm not sure yet.
Folks, if your record's bad, you go to the offensive line first. And that was the case. The two definitely connected for Arkansas in 2023. Ty Hudson, Tusk Talk with Ty. We will get together for the defense, but in the meantime, you track Ty every day. You see the X handle there, but most notably right here on YouTube. What's the next thing we can look out for? I guess from a football standpoint, you're going to be there on opening day.
Yeah, we've got a Zoom, or you can be there in person, but I'm just not driving all the way over there just to do something I could do at home, which is just being on the Zoom call. So I'll have that up hopefully shortly after he's done. So maybe around 2ish tomorrow we'll have that up for everybody, assuming his press conference goes on for probably about 30 minutes. So probably closer to about 1:45 that'll be up. And then I think Thursday we have practice day 1. And then Friday, practice day 2. I think we've got rain in the forecast, so we'll probably be indoors that Thursday and Friday. But yeah, I'm gonna have reactionary content to all that. I'm gonna upload. If you're a Tuss Talk with Ty Patreon supporter, I'm gonna upload my raw reactions, like literally as I'm either walking to my car or in my car. I'm gonna give you like, here's what I'm seeing. Those videos will be short. They'll be on Tuss Talk with Ty Patreon only. They're 2 minutes, just quick little breakdowns, what I saw, what I liked, what I maybe didn't like. Obviously, my first reaction is going to be, oh, my God, Bobby Petrino is really here. So, as fascinating as that is in and of itself, we still got this whole phase 1. It starts this week. And so you've got a bunch of headlines, but obviously the biggest one is Bobby Petrino back in Fayetteville.
All right, Ty. Appreciate you stopping by as always. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Mark.